Today's episode is brought to you by Dr. Jeffrey Halstead, DMD. Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram. Today we continue our series previewing local elections across the Finger Lakes by catching up with one of the candidates running for Bristol Town Board. Nancy Napurski joins me via Zoom. Nancy, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So let's get the easy question out of the way. Why are you running?
I'm running because I'd like to get more involved in local government. I'd like to understand how it works. My political career, if you will, started when Trump was elected. I think that activated a lot of people. I was very concerned about what was happening, and I started to pay more attention on the national level. And I was naturally curious then about what happens at the state level, county level, and then town. And the few times that I sat in on town board meetings, I was fascinated and had lots of questions. And the structure is very different than anything that I was familiar with or that I had seen online, for example, with yelling participants. And it's not like that. But I still had many questions. Why are we spending money on this? Why is that happening? My neighbor happened to be complaining to me about the amount of salt that was going on his driveway during the winter, and his well had been salted, if you will. And I'm wondering, how do you fix that? How do you help people? So that was one of the reasons. What's the main reason, really, is that I wanted to get more involved.
It sounds like it was really organic. And I guess my next question, the next natural question is, what are the biggest issues that you're hearing from voters as you're going through this campaign process of knocking on neighbors' doors, talking to people? What do they care about as you're going through this process?
To be honest, it's not easy to knock on doors here in Bristol. It's a rural community, lots of long driveways, and I'm really not doing that so much as I am paying attention to what the town board is discussing and what's important to them. In fact, just this last Saturday, we had a budget meeting. And so some of the issues that came up at that time are kind of known this already. Like we're going to need a new town hall in the next X number of years. It's a beautiful old historical building, and there's not enough room for all the staff that we now need. So that's one of the issues. Excuse me. I have been hearing in the town about our water district. Lots of our residents have wells, like I do, but there is a water district where we get our water from, I believe, Canandaigua Lake, and it's processed through the city of Canandaigua and the town. And there's issues that are happening there. The water treatment facility, excuse me, serves a number of families here in Bristol, and anything that happens within that water district affects just those families. And that's something that we need to be aware of, to look at. There's upgrades that need to happen, and how is that going to affect those residents as well as the other residents of Bristol? Certainly our Department of Transportation, just like any of our rural towns here, that is, I believe, our biggest budget line item. The supplies, how is that changing? What happens as our climate is changing and we're experiencing greater storm impacts? And we've got Egypt Road, which is a beautiful place, but the road, there's issues going on there. Every time I go by, there's some other project that's happening. How do we pay for that? How is it being paid? How are we planning? I just on my road, on Keir Road, really big storms. We've got a giant culvert. It's huge. Goes out, and the trucks are here, and they're putting it together again. We're like little Pinocchios. I think there's a couple of spots here, or excuse me, not Pinocchio. It's Humpty Dumpty's. They keep breaking off. They keep falling off the wall, and we got to put them back together. So those are some of the issues that are on my radar, and certainly on the town board, on the town's radar.
I'm curious. Obviously, those are all big issues. They're also expensive issues. There's probably going to be quite a few people listen to this, and if you're elected, show up to town board meetings and say, "Whoa, hold on. I don't want my taxes to double or triple or whatever the case may be to address all of these issues. So what would be, how would you like to see the town board philosophically approach these in kind of like a methodical manner over a longer period of time so that residents aren't crushed with, a doubling or tripling of taxes if a bunch of infrastructure issues do need to be addressed?
That's a perfect question for me to lead in why I personally feel that my skill set is going to be helpful in the town. And that is, I have a communications background. So I started my career in public relations and have and marketing communications as well. So in the business realm, what that means is understanding what a company or a product or a person has to sell or share information, what they want to say. And I help them craft what to say and how to say it and how to distribute that information. And I feel that the town of Bristol, and I'm not sure generally, I haven't been that connected to the political landscape in the places that I've lived. So I'm not sure how other towns approach this. And with that said, I feel like there's a disconnect between how the government works, how people are paying for this, what needs to be paid for, and how they can be more a part of the conversation. And so what I'd like to do is take my communication skills and bring that to the board so that we can get our residents more engaged so that they know what's going on. So they won't be angry when they show up. They'll have solutions or ideas, or we can come to the table and have discussions about how best we can approach this. We may have a resident who knows all about grant writing, for example, or how to access FEMA monies. Now, I do know that the town does that now, but there may be other government monies out there that we don't know about or have had difficulty accessing. Maybe one of our residents can help us do that, or we'll have an idea about how to do that. But we can't get that person into the conversation until we reach out to them to engage more, to teach what's happening, and to ask them to participate.
I'm always curious, this is a question that I've been throwing at pretty much everybody, who, especially in rural communities. We're hearing all the time that fire and EMS service are really in a tough spot. Cities, obviously, they're paying, and it's expensive, and it's getting more expensive. When it comes to rural communities, we're talking about volunteer forces, which are frankly dwindling across the board. And this is not like a Bristol problem. This is not a Bloomfield problem. This is a New York State problem. How does it feel in Bristol? How does Bristol feel situated on this front? Does it seem like the town is in good shape when it comes to response time, when it comes to how residents feel about first responder services? Or do you think that's something that the town's probably going to have to pay a little more attention to, say, over the next 5 to 10 years?
One of the discussion points that came up at the budget meeting was about the fire department, and actually at the last town hall meeting that I participated in, that I visited also. Mm-hmm. And yes, Bristol is experiencing that as well. The volunteers are aging out. We're trying to get more people involved. To be honest, I haven't spoken to anyone in particular, and I don't know about response times and that type of thing. I know personally, my husband, who is a master craftsman and woodworker and tree cutter, we've had to use the ambulance services years ago, but we were very grateful to have them. And makes you want to cry, actually, because it was really traumatic when they came. But we had to have a mercy flight. It was a relief when I heard the siren go. It was a relief to me. And I want to make sure that all of our residents have that same feeling, that they know that they're going to be supported. So I'm sure that discussion is on the table with the town. I know they have a really great relationship. And I believe that there are areas that the town can help. Also, on a communication standpoint, we can engage residents and ask for their help, teach them how important having the fire department is. Again, it's the interaction of the residents with the town and the fire department that will help to create a greater sense of community, that we're all in this together. And I don't mind if my taxes go up to help other people. And that I think is an important message that we can craft and share.
Mhm.
And we are all in this together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have just about 2,300 residents. That's not a lot. It's a small town, but we have big problems to solve.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many hands make light work, right?
Fair. Your vision, I want to get inside your brain here. Economic development. What does your vision of economic development look like in a community like Bristol? More rural, obviously. Tourism driven, obviously. What comes to mind when you think about economic development over, say, the next 5 to 8 years? What do you see?
I haven't thought about it. So that's a fair question. I'm new to town government. I'm new to thinking about all of these things, and I'm intrigued and excited about learning about those things. We do there's been a bit of controversy here in terms of economic development. We have a building, it's a beautiful building on Route 64. And when I moved here in 2014, it was empty, which is a gorgeous corporate building. And I always wondered what it was and what the history, what's the story of this beautiful empty building. And just a few years ago, I think, we noticed a smell of marijuana as we're driving by. Next thing you know, there's it's not corn stalks, it's pot plants. Well, that's interesting on this corporate ground. Yeah. And the security guards. And so that certainly is economic development, right? And then I know that there was we had a resolution or a law that I'm not sure of the details. Again, I'm new to this, about opting in to have, I believe it was opting in to have a marijuana dispensary. Bristol opted out.
Yep.
And there's economic development there. And from my perspective, it's an education issue. It's still, for me, everything comes down to communication. If the town understands the pros and cons, if we can effectively communicate those pros and cons for the business and for the town, that's conversation to have. Let's all decide what's best for the town, because there is value, and laws are changing. Society is changing in terms of its attitudes towards marijuana, and research is showing that it can be helpful in many circumstances. It's just it's a small town with big town problems that not necessarily a problem, but issues that we need to address. The tax base, this company is putting tax money into our coffers. People that come to a dispensary will be putting tax money into our coffers. Are we going to have more real estate development? We have, like Farmington, for example, you've got farmland that is turning into houses. I don't even know what that conversation is. If there's anyone interested in developing land for housing, I'm not sure about that, but it's a conversation to be had.
It sounds like your message is have an open mind.
Have an open mind. Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk
I'm going to stop you on that. Have an open mind. Conservative, liberal, progressive, all of those labels, I think, are not important. Or Republican and Democrat. For me, those labels aren't important. What's important is the problem to be solved, getting everyone in the room, accessing the best minds and research about the issues that we're discussing. And let's all just talk about how we're best going to serve our residents. Yeah.
Kind of a connected issue that I guess I want to get your thoughts here on. Last month, we saw the report that forecasts a 40% increase in seniors living in the Finger Lakes by 2040, while all the younger age groups under 65 are going to decline between 7 and 14%. When you think about a town like Bristol, 2,400 residents roughly, and you think about that demographic shift over the next 15-ish years, how much of a challenge do you think that could pose for a small town in a place that's a little bit of a drive away from the nearest city?
I would argue that it's not really that far. One of the reasons we love living here is that the hospital is 10 minutes away. Canandaigua, the services that are available in Canandaigua, which is connected to Rochester, granted, getting to Rochester for medical services is a mercy flight away. In fact, it's what we learned. But truly, it's not that far, 45 minutes, an hour to one of the best medical communities in the country, really. It is great for our seniors. It's great for everyone, really, for anyone who needs medical care and really high level of medical care. And again, getting to Canandaigua, getting to Wegmans, to Lowe's. My husband's a master craftsman. He needed to be 15 minutes away from a hardware store, big box store. So Bristol is situated in a somewhat different place than other rural communities, right? For our seniors. One thing I have been thinking about, and I just learned recently, is senior services, community services, social services. And it made me think about social infrastructure for seniors in particular. My mom is 87 and she lives in northern Westchester, and the town of Cortland has lots of services for her. When I go to visit, we go to the Verplank seniors meeting, and there's dancing and trips, and there's a very strong community. Now, granted, there's lots more people, higher tax base, but I did just learn that I believe it's in Richmond or Honeoye has a seniors group that a number of communities can access, that were somehow connected. And I didn't know that, which leads me back to communication and sharing the services that we already have in place for our seniors and getting their families involved. Because seniors, I'm 62. I'm a senior now. I could go to the senior meetings at my mother's house. And those types of that, again, social infrastructure is such an important part of aging well. It's not just medical care. It's social care and being connected and making sure that that if our seniors, they want to have something to do and connect them. Liz Yackel, who is running for county clerk, she is the owner of the Fuzzy Bunny, and she in Honeoye, a yarn store, a yarn and crafting store, and she has I want to say a quilting circle, but it's not. I forget the term that she uses, but she invites everyone to come with their crafting project to connect and help each other. And that's also a part of our social fabric that I think can be improved here in the town of Bristol.
Building community. Obviously, housing has become a major issue that the county wants to take on. And obviously the towns and cities in Ontario County are all going to play a role in that. I'm curious, given how much emphasis you've placed on communication, how much of the housing problem do you think in communities like Ontario County, especially the smaller towns, is more of a communication problem than it is anything else? Communicating to developers, communicating to the outside world that, hey, we're here, we have all this space ready for development, come on down.
I can't really speak to that because I haven't thought about it. I haven't talked to anyone about that as a concept in terms of real estate development. But certainly connecting to those developers, that's that if any of our town board members it hasn't been on the radar for the meetings that I've been attending. And in the future, if that does become an issue, I think that's a great idea in terms of economic development, and bringing that as a concept to the table is how you connect to those developers. I don't know how it works, interested to learn how it works, and I can certainly participate in trying to reach those people and crafting the message of, we have land, we have builders, we have a beautiful place to live,
Last question, and it's an easy one. Where can folks learn more about your campaign, or what's the best way to reach you if they're a resident of Bristol and they want to learn more about your campaign?
On Facebook, I have a Napurski for Bristol Facebook page, and I post there occasionally. I don't have too many followers right now, but yes, anyone is able to find information there about me.
Awesome. Nancy, thanks so much for the time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about my fabulous town of Bristol.
That'll do it for this edition of FLX Today. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this one, check out the show on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to the FingerLakes1.com YouTube channel. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.